Linda Ronstadt was the queen of rock, but behind closed doors, she kept a list of musicians she refused to work with again. In 1968, Jim Morrison drunkenly pulled her on stage and tried to kiss her. She was humiliated. Later, he called her spineless to the press. And that wasn't even her worst experience. One rock legend told her to stick to covers and leave songwriting to real artists. She banned him from her tour forever. These battles changed her career path forever, pushing her away from rock and toward unexpected new genres. Linda Ronstadt was born on July 15, 1946, in Tucson, Arizona. She was the third of 4 children in a family with deep roots in music and history. Her grandfather, Federico Ronstadt, had fled Mexico with just a French horn and built one of Arizona's biggest hardware companies. That business helped her father, Gilbert, keep their ranch running even when other families were struggling. The Ronstadts had been in Arizona since the 1770s, making them one of the state's oldest non-native families. Her grandmother had been an opera singer. Her grandfather led Tucson's first international orchestra. Even the hospital where Linda was born had a Ronstadt wing named after her family. She grew up on a 10-acre ranch called El Caserio. It was more than a home. It was a music school. By age 6, she was staying up all night singing at family gatherings. They drank cinnamon coffee with a bit of tequila to help the voice. That's what her father said Mexican opera singers used. The ranch had over 800 rare records of Mexican folk music. Some were smuggled during the Mexican Revolution. These records became her education. Her father made sure everything was in Spanish, even though most kids back then were punished for speaking it in school. There were wax cylinders of her great-grandfather singing from the 1860s. And on top of all that, the ranch had a small canyon with a natural echo. When Linda sang there, she could hear herself back in a 7-second delay. It helped her learn to sing in perfect pitch. Her training at home was intense. By age 7, she was practicing 4 hours a day. Her father had her run around the ranch while singing to build breath control. She had to learn how to cry through a song, what Mexicans call a grito. Most adults take years to learn it. Linda nailed it before she turned 10. In 1954, her dad bought a tape recorder for $312 just to record her voice. That would be over $3,000 today. On those tapes, her famous vibrato was already clear by age 8. In 1956, she and her siblings did their first paid gig at a Rotary Club for $15. Her father used the money to buy savings bonds for her music future. In high school, she lived a double life. At Catalina High, she looked like a regular teen, but on weekends, she was earning more than adults from her performances. She didn't tell the school. At 16, she met Bob Kimmel. He was 23. Her dad had hired him for guitar lessons. Their partnership made people talk. But Kimmel saw her talent and pushed her toward a career, even when her parents weren't sure. That same year, she sang background vocals on 4 country songs recorded in Phoenix. Her voice stood out. Radio listeners wanted to know who the mystery singer was. In 1963, during her final year, she had her first heartbreak. Her boyfriend had secretly sold recordings of her private performances. That betrayal made her careful about contracts later in life. At the school talent show, she sang "Willin'." The song mentioned drugs and long-haul driving. The school cut her mic mid-performance. It made the local paper. It was her first public scandal, and her first taste of censorship. She went to the University of Arizona, but not for long. Just 3 weeks into her first year, her boyfriend died in a car crash. She couldn't focus. The school listed her exit as a family emergency. But that wasn't true. She wanted to chase her music dream. Her parents said no. Her father even froze her savings, $432 from her shows. Still, in December 1964, she left for Los Angeles with Bob Kimmel and very little money. The trip was rough. Their car broke down. In Blythe, California, police thought they were robbers. They spent 6 hours in jail before being cleared. In LA, she lived in an unheated garage in Silver Lake for $8 a week. She worked mornings in a store and sang for tips at night. Her big break came at an open mic. Jackson Browne broke a guitar string, and Linda let him use hers. That one act started a friendship and a touring partnership that would change both their lives. In LA, she and Kimmel formed a band called the Stone Ponies. They thought they were doing something new, but other bands had beaten them to it. Still, they trimmed the group down to 3 and started playing folk rock. They were discovered while rehearsing at a restaurant. In 1966, Capitol Records signed them. Their first album didn't do well, but people noticed Linda's voice. Then came Different Drum. It had been written by Michael Nesmith, who later joined the Monkees. The song had been rejected by others, but producer Nick Vanette gave it to Linda. He replaced the band with studio musicians for the recording. The song hit the charts in late 1967. It stayed there for 17 weeks and reached number 13 in the United States. In New Zealand, it went to number 5. The success caused tension in the band. Capitol Records started promoting Linda Ronstadt and the Stone Ponies. Linda didn't like her own performance, but fans loved it. The band soon broke up. Linda went solo. In March 1969, she released Hand Sewn Homegrown. It was the first alternative country album by a woman. She blended rock vocals with country roots. It confused radio stations. Too country for rock, too rock for country. But it was original. She worked with producer Chip Douglas. She covered Bob Dylan and Randy Newman. She even flipped a country hit called Only Daddy That'll Walk the Line into Only Mama That'll Walk the Line. She was redefining country music, even if the industry didn't know where to place her. Touring wasn't always kind. After Different Drum, the band toured with The Doors. Linda didn't like Jim Morrison. One night in 1968, he pulled her on stage drunk. He tried to kiss her. Then he fell into the mic stand. She was humiliated. Morrison later called her sweet but spineless. Neil Young wasn't much better. During a protest concert, he said her music was too commercial. It hurt. Linda cared deeply about causes, especially those tied to her Mexican roots. She never performed with Young again. When Linda Ronstadt met Peter Asher in 1973, something just clicked. She was already known for her voice, but she hadn't yet found the perfect partner to shape her sound. Asher, once part of the duo Peter and Gordon, had worked with James Taylor. Now, thanks to Kate Taylor, he was in a room with Ronstadt. They tried working together on a few songs for her album Don't Cry Now, but it was their full collaboration on Heart Like a Wheel in 1974 that changed everything. Asher knew exactly how to highlight her voice. He once said she was the best singer he ever worked with, and he wasn't exaggerating. That one album started something huge. Over the next years, they made 13 albums together. Every single one went gold or platinum. That had never been done before. Ronstadt's voice, combined with Asher's studio skills, created a sound that worked on both pop and country radio. Suddenly, she wasn't stuck in a single genre. She could do it all, and listeners loved it. Heart Like a Wheel was released in November 1974. It went straight to number 1 on the Billboard 200 and stayed on the chart for almost a year. It also ruled the country charts for 4 straight weeks. The first single, You're No Good, hit #1 on the Hot 100. When Will I Be Loved went to #2 on pop charts and #1 on the country chart. By 1991, the album had sold over 2 million copies in the United States. In 2013, the Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry. Rolling Stone later named it one of the 500 greatest albums of all time. What's crazy is that Capitol Records released the album out of contract obligations. Ronstadt had already switched to another label. Even the label politics couldn't hold it back. One reason the album worked so well was Ronstadt's unique way of reimagining songs. She didn't just cover old tracks, she made them her own. She grew up in Tucson, Arizona, surrounded by her father's piano playing and traditional Mexican music. That blend of styles helped her add new rhythm and feeling to everything she touched. When she sang Buddy Holly's "It Doesn't Matter Anymore" or the Everly Brothers' "When Will I Be Loved," she wasn't copying them. She was transforming them. People from different genres didn't always understand her. Rock fans said she was too soft. Folk fans thought she was too pop. But country fans? They got it. And they embraced her. Her rising fame also helped launch other artists. In 1971, her manager hired Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner as her backing band. They later became the Eagles, but their friendship didn't last. As the Eagles got more famous, so did their egos. Don Henley once insulted Ronstadt backstage, telling her to stick to covers. She threw him off her tour. The band that had started with her now treated her like she didn't belong. It was personal, and it stung. By 1975, Linda Ronstadt was no longer just a singer. She was a phenomenon. She filled arenas, something no female rock artist had done before. Rolling Stone, Newsweek, and Time all put her on their covers. She was called the Queen of Rock and became one of the top earners in the business. But it came with a cost. The touring, the pressure, the constant spotlight, it wore her down. She began to feel disconnected from the music she loved. Everyone expected her to keep producing hits, even when her heart wanted to explore other sounds. In 1976, she won her first Grammy for Best Country Vocal Performance by a Female for her version of Hank Williams' "I Can't Help It, If I'm Still in Love with You." It came from Heart Like a Wheel. Her voice gave that old song a whole new life. It hit #2 on the country charts and proved she could still shine in a world dominated by men. Then came Simple Dreams in 1977. It was a monster hit. It knocked Rumors by Fleetwood Mac off the top of the charts after 29 weeks. It also pushed Elvis Presley off the #1 country spot, just weeks after his death. The album sold 3.5 million copies in the United States in less than a year. In 1978, she followed up with Living in the USA. It became the first album ever to ship double platinum, over 2 million copies before it even hit stores. That record sold 3 million copies and became her third #1 album. The cover, with Ronstadt in roller skates, sparked a national craze. That same year, Billboard honored her with 3 awards: Pop Female Singles Artist of the Year, Pop Female Album Artist of the Year, and overall Female Artist of the Year. She earned $12 million in 1978 alone. That's around $58 million today. Her album sales for that year alone topped 17 million copies. She had officially broken the glass ceiling. While all this was happening, she was also dating California Governor Jerry Brown. The two met at a Mexican restaurant in Hollywood. He was quiet, serious, and disciplined, very different from the musicians she usually met. Their relationship caught a lot of public attention. People even speculated about whether Brown would use government money to protect her Malibu home during a storm. He didn't. They traveled together and grew close, but they both knew they were too different to last. She once said, "He would have found my life too chaotic, and I would have found his too restrictive." In 1980, she shocked everyone by doing musical theater. She starred in The Pirates of Penzance in Central Park, then on Broadway. No one expected a rock singer to pull it off, but she did. The show ran for 787 performances and was later turned into a movie. Ronstadt even got a Tony nomination. Her voice proved it could handle anything. Then, in 1983, she made another surprising move. She released What's New, an album of old jazz standards, working with 62-year-old arranger Nelson Riddle. Her label was horrified. The president of Elektra Records begged her not to do it. Even Peter Asher had doubts. The album started slow, debuting at number 93, but in 4 weeks, it hit the top 10. It stayed on the charts for 81 weeks and sold over 3 million copies in the United States. Critics praised her for bringing life back to pre-rock music. She proved once again that she could take any risk and make it work. Around that same time, she quietly started dating Star Wars creator George Lucas. The public didn't even know. They were never photographed together. They stayed engaged for 5 years, often spending time at his Skywalker ranch. But in the end, Ronstadt's need for independence won out. Asher said she wasn't the type to settle down, and she knew it. After her rock success started to fade in the early 80s, Ronstadt didn't try to chase trends. Instead, she leaned into her love of classic music. What's New became the first of 3 albums with Nelson Riddle. The trilogy sold nearly 7 million copies in the United States alone. And she did it all without help from Top 40 radio. Her success opened the door for others, Rod Stewart, Harry Connick Jr., to explore the same style later on. But none of it came easy. Every time Ronstadt tried something new, she had to fight. Her label didn't want her to make jazz records. When she made a pop standards album with Jerry Wexler, she scrapped the whole thing because it didn't feel right. She had to fight just to record What's New. Even then, the label wanted her to sneak in a rock element. She gave them one tiny concession, featuring a rock guitarist in the video, but that was it. She stuck to her vision, and it paid off. Ronstadt once said, "Rampant eclecticism is my middle name." That pretty much sums her up. No matter the pressure, no matter the doubts, she made the music she believed in, and millions followed. In 1987, something fans had been waiting for finally happened. Linda Ronstadt, Dolly Parton, and Emmylou Harris, 3 of the biggest voices in country music, came together as a supergroup. Their friendship had started back in the mid-1970s. They admired each other's work and often sang each other's songs. But every time they tried to record together, something got in the way. Their record labels clashed. Their schedules never lined up. It took 10 years before it all finally worked. When they did record, the result was magic. Emmylou said even they were surprised by how good they sounded together. Their first album went platinum in the United States and sold around 4 million copies worldwide. Big names like Albert Lee and Ry Cooder played on it. George Massenburg produced it. They won a Grammy for Best Country Performance by a duo or group and were nominated for Album of the Year, right alongside giants like Michael Jackson and Prince. Their version of "To Know Him Is to Love Him" became their biggest hit, showing off their perfect blend of voices. That same year, Ronstadt shocked everyone again, but in a very different way. She released Canciones de mi Padre, a full album of traditional Mexican mariachi music. This wasn't a small move. It was a huge risk. Music critics mocked it. Some called it a joke. Rolling Stone even made fun of the cover art. But Linda didn't back down. She teamed up with famous composer Rubén Fuentes and 3 top mariachi groups from Los Angeles. There were fights during recording. Fuentes wanted a modern mariachi sound. Ronstadt wanted something older, something from her childhood. She brought in old records and even pictures of cows to explain her vision. In the end, she got her way. And she was right. The album became a hit, selling over 2.5 million copies. It became the best-selling non-English album in American history. It won her another Grammy. Suddenly, people started seeing mariachi music in a new light. Musicians said more people came to their shows. Ronstadt had changed how the country saw Mexican music. This wasn't just music for Ronstadt, it was personal. She grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where speaking Spanish in school could get you punished. But at home, her father's Mexican songs were always part of life. She often said, "I am Mexican-American, German-Mexican." But people didn't always believe her. She had light skin and a German last name, so some just ignored her roots. When she sang in Spanish, some said her accent was too perfect. But she worked hard to get it right. She wasn't fluent, so she practiced constantly before recording. She wanted to honor the songs. Her hard work paid off. People started paying attention. By 1990, she was working with a cultural center in California, helping young Mexican Americans connect with their heritage through music. That same year, Ronstadt made another bold choice. She adopted a baby girl named Mary Clementine. She was single, and in 1990, that was still seen as unusual. But she didn't care. She had said years earlier that if she wanted children, she wouldn't wait for marriage. Mary grew up in Arizona and later became an artist, working for 10 years in San Francisco. In 1994, Ronstadt adopted a son, Carlos. He showed musical talent too, but chose a career in tech. By 2019, he was working at Apple and living close to his mom. Ronstadt raised both kids in a home filled with music and Mexican culture. She once said her daughter didn't even know she sang in English until she was 6. For Ronstadt, passing on her culture was just as important as any gold record. In 1994, Ronstadt, Parton, and Harris reunited to record a second trio album. But getting it released was a battle. Record labels didn't want it. Schedules clashed. Parton even asked to be removed from some songs, forcing Ronstadt to rework the album. Still, when Trio 2 finally came out in 1999, it sold over 500,000 copies and won a Grammy. Their cover of Neil Young's After the Gold Rush was hauntingly beautiful. Ronstadt was proud of it and stayed close with Emmylou. They often talked about how special those albums were. But as the 1990s ended, something started going wrong. Ronstadt's voice began to falter. During a session with Emmylou in 2000, she felt her voice lock up like a cramp. People told her she was just being picky, but she knew better. Over time, her range got smaller. By 2004, she had to change the way she sang. It felt like yelling instead of singing. Doctors didn't know what was wrong. Some said it was stress. Others blamed age. Ronstadt kept going. Her last album came in 2006, but she said every note was a struggle. Her final concert was in 2009. After that, she burned her stage clothes. It wasn't until 2011 that she finally got answers. First, they said Parkinson's. Later, it was corrected to something even rarer, progressive supranuclear palsy. That was what had stolen her voice, slowly and silently, over the years. In August 2013, Linda Ronstadt shocked the world. While promoting her memoir Simple Dreams, she revealed something no one expected. She had Parkinson's disease. The most heartbreaking part? She quietly lived with the symptoms for almost 8 years before doctors finally diagnosed her, just 8 months before that interview. She said it simply, but painfully. "I can't sing a note." That one line explained what fans had been wondering for years: why she had stopped performing. Her final concert had been back in 2009 in San Antonio. After that, she turned down every offer to sing again. Looking back, Ronstadt had noticed her voice changing when she turned 50. At first, she thought it was just a mechanical issue. She tried new techniques, kept performing, and hoped it would pass. But it didn't. Even more haunting was her personal theory. She blamed the condition on 2 bad tick bites she got in the 1980s. She said her health never fully recovered after that. 1 year later, in 2014, Ronstadt was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She had been eligible for nearly 20 years, but once nominated, she was elected right away. It proved just how much of an impact she had made. Glenn Frey from the Eagles, who had once been in her backing band, gave her induction speech. But by then, Parkinson's had already taken her voice, and she couldn't fully participate in the event. She kept quiet about the award, saying she didn't want to seem ungrateful, but had no comments. To her, it wasn't about fame. She had moved past rock music long ago, diving into opera, classic standards, and traditional Mexican songs. That same year, something even bigger happened. On July 28, 2014, President Barack Obama gave her the National Medal of Arts. It was the highest honor an American artist could receive. Obama praised her one-of-a-kind voice and how she helped open doors for women in music. The ceremony took place at the White House and was streamed live for fans around the world. Ronstadt sat among other legends like Maxine Hong Kingston and choreographer Bill T. Jones. The award honored not just her voice, but her courage to cross genres and explore any kind of music she loved. 5 years later, in December 2019, Ronstadt received another major honor. She was celebrated at the Kennedy Center Honors alongside Sally Field, Earth, Wind and Fire, and others. This was 10 years after her last concert and 6 years after revealing her illness. The tribute was beautiful, filled with performances and emotional moments. The night before, at the official dinner, she received her medallion at the State Department. She sat in the balcony of the Kennedy Center Opera House, watching it all. This wasn't just another award. It was a lifetime of risk-taking, boundary-breaking, and music that came straight from the soul. That same year, a powerful documentary about her life was released. Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice, premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival in April 2019. It won audience awards, was released in theaters, and later on streaming and DVD. It aired on CNN in early 2020. The film told her full story, from her childhood in Tucson singing Mexican songs to becoming the queen of country rock. It followed her artistic detours into opera, jazz, and Latin music. The documentary ends with her diagnosis, showing how the disease ended her singing career. She narrated most of it herself. Even if she couldn't sing anymore, she could still tell her story. The film went on to win Best Music Film at the 63rd Grammy Awards, her first nomination since 2006. Through it all, Ronstadt never tried to fit the mold. In her personal life, she stayed independent. During the 1970s, she had a famous relationship with California Governor Jerry Brown, but she never married. Her choices were her own. While many in the industry tried to define her, she refused to be boxed in. she followed her own instincts, whether that meant walking away from rock stardom, exploring operetta, or embracing her Mexican roots. Linda Ronstadt had one of the most powerful voices in music. But behind the awards and hit songs, she also had her share of bitter fallouts with other big names. These weren't just misunderstandings. Some were explosive, others quietly painful, and many were rooted in ego, creative control, or just pure disrespect. In the early days, Don Henley played drums for Linda before he became famous with the Eagles. But fame changed things. By 1975, during a backstage moment at the Universal Amphitheater, Henley told her to stick to covers and leave songwriting to real artists. He mocked her for being too delicate for rock. That was it for Linda. She banned him from touring with her. Later, she called him a climber who lost his soul. It wasn't just personal. It reflected the way women in music were often treated, as side notes, not equals. Her clash with Jim Morrison was even more humiliating. In 1968, during an after-party at Whiskey A Go-Go, Morrison pulled her on stage, tried to kiss her, and knocked over her microphone. He later mocked her in interviews, calling her sweet but spineless. Linda never hit back publicly, but she told friends he was a brilliant wreck who poisoned everything around him. It was another reminder of how toxic rock culture could be, especially for women. Even when they shared causes, things didn't always go well. Linda and Neil Young both supported farm workers' rights. But at a benefit concert in 1976, he told her she was too commercial and refused to let her sing her own songs. Later, he told the press she wasn't fit for protest music. That hurt deeply, especially since her activism was tied to her Mexican roots. She never worked with him again. Working with Frank Zappa in 1974 was supposed to be exciting. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. He called her voice too sanitized and said she made his music sound like radio jingles. He even stopped a rehearsal to say, "This is what happens when you hand real music to a pop singer." Linda left the project. She still admired his talent, but she couldn't accept the way he treated her. David Crosby was once a friend, but drugs and ego got in the way. In 1978, during a recording session, he refused to change the key of a song to fit her voice. He told her to adapt to the real pitch. Later, in Rolling Stone, he called her manufactured. Linda never forgave that. She cut him off completely and didn't allow his name to be mentioned on her tours. Elvis Costello was angry when she covered his songs, especially Allison. He said her album Mad Love was a waste of vinyl. But Linda took the high road. She praised his writing and ignored his insults. Years later, Costello admitted he was wrong. He even cried while watching her documentary. That moment of regret turned a Cold War into mutual respect. Then there was Paul Simon. In 1982, they planned a duet for Graceland, but it fell apart. Simon controlled every part of the session. He rewrote lyrics, changed vocal phrasing, and didn't listen to her input. She said working with him felt like being lectured by a school principal. She walked away from the project and never returned. Around the same time, she also got heat for performing at Sun City during apartheid, something Simon was criticized for too. But Linda later took a stronger stance, distancing herself from that decision. Even her partnership with Dolly Parton had quiet cracks. Along with Emmylou Harris, their trio albums were a huge success. But behind the scenes, Dolly's last-minute cancellations caused tension. Linda was disciplined and expected the same from others. The final straw came when Dolly believed Linda had pushed her out, without asking first. Linda said she was hurt by the lack of trust. They remained polite in public, but the friendship never fully healed.